everyone, and welcome to your live stream experience with Martin Janecky. You also have his two TAs. Over there, we have the one and only Darren Dennison, followed by the lovely Erin Hoffman. Round of applause, everybody involved, for Martin and his TAs. Yes. And to the viewers who are sitting on their couches, drinking coffee, hanging out with us this morning. We got a small but mighty crowd. I'm sure it's going to fill up. If you are unfamiliar with Martin's work, he is known for his hollow inside sculpting, some solid sculpting. Today, he started about 9 o'clock. He powdered the surface of his bubble a few times and then specifically heated tiny locations and used a knife to carve in these very thin, delicate lines. It looked almost like a cold-worked rawl. He then put a little bit of heat on it, covered it in powder so that the powder laid in those lines. He did that a couple times, and he used a very stiff powder so that when he sculpted it and moved everything around, those lines wouldn't get too distorted. He then blew out the bubble a little bit after melting everything in, made it look a little bit like a ball, and then a light bulb shape. And then he opened up the very top of the skull so that he could go inside of it with sculpting tools. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, feel free to write them in to our live streamers. We have people standing by that will ask the questions. They'll direct them at me, Kat, your hostess with the mostest. And then, don't shake your head at me, Teresa, I'm hilarious. And we'll answer anything that you guys have. We've got our lovely class. We've been here for a week and a half so far at the Corning Museum of Glass studio with a lovely facility. And we'll also be doing a live stream from the Corning Museum of Glass Amphitheater Hot Shop at Thursday, which is tomorrow at what time? 6:30-ish. So if this isn't enough and you need more Martin Janecky in your life, don't worry, you have a second opportunity tomorrow night. And if you can't stick around with us for the whole thing, don't worry, this will get put up onto our Corning Museum of Glass YouTube page. So you see, Martin has a torch, which is a mix of gas and oxygen. He can regulate it so it's a small flame, a large flame, so he can heat up a large spot or a tiny spot. And you'll see a lot of things where he goes inside the bubble, pushes things out a little bit further, and then he'll go on the outside and push them back in. And Martin does a great job of doing a couple moves, hanging out, explaining what he's doing to the class. I think we've all been learning tons and tons. We've been here from 9 to 11 every single day making glass. I'm pretty sure we're all really exhausted, but Martin never stops. Oh, that was a good little show. Could really see the pattern. All right, so we heated out the outside, and it's going in with a cork paddle that just has a little bit of water on it so it doesn't smoke up too much. Although I'm sure for you at home, the drama and the intrigue of the smoke and the flames is probably a lot. It's probably fun. You having fun, Martin? Yeah? Got to stay hydrated, right? It's a lovely day today here in Corning. Not too hot, not too cold. It's perfect for blowing glass. Perfect. Got to make sure you keep some heat on that moil because we will sculpt this skull for a few hours. You have to make sure that you don't just do the moves to sculpt the face. You also have to keep your glass happy the whole time and make fun little whale noises when at all possible. So do you guys have any comments, questions, thoughts, and feelings about the skull that maybe the people listening in maybe have questions about? Or do you guys all still need another cup of coffee? Another cup of coffee. Garçon, coffee for the class. We don't have someone to do that? We're live streaming and no one's bringing us coffee? If you're listening right now, you should all write in that the hot shop class should get brought coffee. See if they do it for us. Now, if you're watching Erin, what she's doing is equally important. She's making sure that this whole piece stays nice and warm, just hot enough that it's not moving around, it's not glowing at all. And you watch her body as she brings it back and holds on to it. She has to make sure that as Martin's turning and doing all this crazy stuff, that she's not really cranking down on the pipe. But as soon as Martin goes to do a move, you're gonna see her put most of her body weight and her full force into her arms so that he can really press down on that skull. Oh, and now we have a whole nother class coming over. We always get lots and lots of visitors. Martin's been making a ton of different work throughout this whole week. We started off with human faces, made a couple full human bodies that were in multiple parts with arms and torsos. I know for the next live stream, he's going to be making a full skeleton. We've already started the skull and the rib cage and the pelvis, and he just needs to make the arms, and he's going to be making a huge Dia de los Muertos inspired boat with a full skeleton inside of it. Now we're making a skull. Yesterday, if you guys are on that Insta game, you will have seen that we posted a lot of videos of those horses. Question, did it start as Marini? For those of you who are just getting involved with us, I will explain again that no, this wasn't Marini, it wasn't Kane. What you're seeing right here, well, I'll say it to the whole audience so that you know as well. What you're seeing here was, if you've ever made a grawl before that you would carve into, which is usually a technique made by cold workers where you have a cold ball of glass with layers of color and then you use different blades to carve into the surface. Well, rather than doing it in a cold working method, Martin had a nice cold kind of egg shape. He let that get really chilly, and then he very specifically heated tiny portions of it and used a steak knife to carve in very deep grooves in this pattern. He then let the whole thing get a little bit chilly and just warm enough that he could go in with some powder and powder the whole surface and then wipe away the top so that in those grooves was just that very stiff powder. And he specifically used this extra stiff powder so that as he starts sculpting it, it's not gonna bleed or distort the pattern as much. That was a great question. Feel free to throw any more out there. Does the audience have any questions, comments, feelings that you would like to share? No, just giggles? Okay, we're a pretty giggly class here too. All right, so we're working away right on the underneath of those eye sockets. This will eventually be puntied and flipped over so that he can open up the very bottom of it, which is where the teeth and the jaw will be. Now you'll see Martin's going to be using a variety of inside sculpting tools. If you look at the tips of them, you'll see that there are different shaped balls, different shaped angled pieces of steel. And Martin's been doing this long enough that he has an entire array at this point, a whole arsenal of inside sculpting tools. And you'll see him do a lot of makeshifting of sculptural tools on the fly. So if something doesn't fit quite right, you'll see him heat something and bend the tool so that it actually goes into the right location. I see you guys talking. Do you have any questions? Fine. Now, some of the moves are to push out features. Some of the moves are to keep the glass nice and warm so that everything stays nice and happy. But there are also moves just to make sure that the piece is staying straight. As you heat this piece and as you start to sculpt it, it's very easy for everything to go out of the round, to go a little bit sideways. So for every couple moves that Martin does where it's just pushing out features, you'll also see a couple moves where it's just to straighten the piece. And depending on where he's trying to move, he'll either be inside the bench or outside the bench. So you'll see a lot of all the inside sculpting usually happens outside of the bench, so he can sit facing straight so he can see that things are happening evenly. But anything that happens on the outside of the bubble, for the most part, will be on the inside of the bench so that he can see it head on and nice and straight. All right, our crowd's still starting to fill up a little bit. If you're in class here and you're also interested in seeing more of Martin's stuff, he's going to be doing a demo for Bill's class at 2:30. What he's going to be making, I'm not sure, probably some sort of awesome goblet. But he's multi-talented. He doesn't just sculpt skulls and human bodies and horses and polar bears and so many different things. He can also make stemware. Who knew?
Underneath it, and then pull underneath it. So when you push with the tool, you're pushing the glass out. So you're creating this. When you push something on the surface, it's pushing the stuff out. They were always trying to create the sharpest edge on the eye socket. And I used to have them just like super round, but really small.
All right, so apparently you can't really hear, but what Martin is telling everyone is that what Martin's trying to tell everybody is that it's not just inside sculpting, so going inside the bubble, that will push the glass out. Depending on the temperature of the glass, as you push down on it from the outside, it will also lift certain areas up from it. And also the different temperature gradients that happen. If you push up one small spot, if the area around it is also warm, you're not just gonna poke a tiny bubble up through the glass, you're also going to be shifting the surrounding area of it. So if you get a general overall heat in a large area and you shift up from the inside, rather than getting a singular poke, you're gonna get kind of a big overall mountain. Whereas if you heat up a very general location, get it really warm, you're gonna be shifting just that one specific area, like how Martin just poked in the eye. He got the eye nice and hot, and it started pushing in that socket. And you'll also see that as we go, oh, Emilio Santini's got a question. Oh, Emilio Santini over here saying, why does Martin get 2 demos and I only get 1? Yesterday it was awesome. Emilio, while we were making a giant horse head, brought over the most micro, mini, full-size horse you've ever seen in your entire life. It was like the size of a pinky nail. So as Martin sculpts, you're going to see that he never just stays in one location very long. He doesn't want to overheat a large portion of the area. So he'll kind of go sporadically all the way over the skull and all over whatever he's sculpting and do general features just to kind of push and pull different areas in and out, and then he'll go in and fine tune all those different locations. So right now he's trying to get just the overall bone structure. And there's a lot of communication that happens between the whole team. This right now, although a very complicated piece, is smaller than some of the stuff we've been making. But it takes a lot of communication because assistants don't want to get a piece too hot or too cold. It's definitely better to bring something over a little chilly than so hot that it's deforming the entire piece that you just worked so hard to sculpt. Oh, nice. We like when Emilio comes in and harasses Martin too, YouTubers. Emilio's pretty funny. Did anyone get a shot of his shirt? No, Emilio's shirt. You should, it's a pretty good shirt. All right, now we also have a fabulous AV team that's here so that you guys can watch from home. So we've got two guys here, nice big cameras, we've got lights everywhere. If you thought a hot shop was clustered before, it's certainly clustered now. For those of you who, for some reason, don't know Martin Janecky's work, he is from the Czech Republic. He's been blowing glass since he was 13 in a factory. He started off doing lots and lots of production work. His father is a glass blower. I'm pretty sure his brothers are also glass blowers. And then people realized that he was this young, very kind of talented human. So he got called all around the world to demo at places, making goblets, fun little things, sculpting little trinkets. And I'm pretty sure he hasn't stopped since. He's been traveling the world, doing demos, teaching for the past 15 years now. So living out of a suitcase for 15 years. And lucky for us, right? Because he travels and we get to watch and learn from him. What am I talking about? I'm letting everyone know where you came from. Hi, my name's Martin. I'm from the Czech Republic. Me, 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 me. Aaron, do you have anything you'd like to talk about or add as an assistant? You don't think so? Not yet?
I'll let you know.
Awesome. All right, so you're looking at this skull and you're thinking, okay, that's what the eye socket's gonna look like. No, it's not. Martin's going to be putting in the second eye socket because he needs to let that other eye cool off so that he can do fine detailed work to it. So he's gonna start working on this other eye socket and really get more of a general shape before he starts going into that detailed work. And you see, there's complete trust that happens between the team. Martin can let go of that pipe and Aaron is right there supporting it, making sure that it's staying straight, making sure that Martin can really press down on it and it doesn't move the features at all. So again, what we've all been learning, pressing things in, getting general shapes, and then pressing them back out using more fine-tuned tools. And you'll see Martin picked up a very narrow tool because he's not trying to push out a big portion of the face. He's just trying to get more of that angular bone structure in it. So a lot of these tools that he'll be using today aren't super round. They're gonna have a little bit more of a structure to them. You can see all the students are taking notes furiously, chatting amongst themselves, saying how lucky they are to be in such a wonderful class. Now, if you guys that are watching have any ideas for the name of this skull, right? He's a person too, he's gonna need a name. Let our AV team know what the name of this skull should be. If you have any great ideas, I'm sure they'd love to moderate that. What was your question, Andrew? Oh, okay. So Andrew is asking the difficulty of making the eye sockets even and making them proportional to the rest of the skull. And I'm pretty sure you just do it right? You just do a good job. All right, so Andrew's question was, how do we get the eye sockets even and proportional to the head? And Martin's answer was really nice. It was, keep it a little bit colder, don't try and rush it. Right, everyone knows perfection takes time. So Martin's answer was, make sure that you don't try and rush it. Just sit down, take a breath, hang out with it. And I see that people must be saying what it should be named. Vincent, Scully McSkullface, John Doe, I like that one. Chip, not a fan of Chip. That's like, no. The Dude, no. All right, but I'm definitely all about John Doe. If someone can top John Doe, I'd like to hear about it. We also have a sparkly class skull named Scully that we've been using. He's over on the Marber. He's watching to make sure that no one jumps out of the crowds. Right? Yeah, how sparkly is that and fantastic? All right, now back to Martin. You want some water? Oh, me? Do I have a nice, smoky, husky voice going on? He gave me the mic. He knows that I never shut up. You're welcome, you two. Is this mine? Thank you. All right, so Martin was just explaining how to get a really nice angular bone structure to the skull. So like I said before, he let it set up, cool down, and now he can go around the edges that he pushed in with the eye sockets, and he presses it flat with a dull knife and then he presses it back out just a little bit from the inside of the socket, and he gets a really nice defined edge. All right, now he's just going back in, making sure that everything stays nice and even. Oh, I see that. Oh, actual question. I love actual questions. All right, so first off, I'm not sure you would ever get it so hot that you would push through the eye socket. Glass just doesn't stretch like that. It would get stretched out enough that it would be thin. And if it got too thin, what Martin would then do is slowly heat it so that it would kind of recondense on itself, hold it so that it was no longer falling in, and hold it the opposite way so that it would fall back out, like gravity kind of pull it back out for itself. And then he could also go on the inside, push it back out.
Yeah, I got that.
Is that a good answer? Did I say what the question was?
Yeah, you said
Okay.
that, so.
I just keep talking, and I'm not sure what's coming out of my face anymore.
Someone was recommending Yorick from Shakespeare.
Oh yeah, Yorick from Shakespeare. To be or not to be. To be a glass blower or not to be. I don't know, my parents like getting all the free glass.
True.
I don't know how I feel about all the peanut butter and jellies though. One of Martin's most expensive sculpting tools is a random butter knife. Where he got it, I'm not sure. It's a really good butter knife. Maybe some more water. The sculptor in his natural habitat. All right, so we worked on the center of those two eye sockets. And if you want to do any more work to it, just gonna let that chill out for a sec. Now he's gonna work on the lower portion of the eye sockets. And he has to make sure that the top portion is still, it's not too hot, because if he goes to do this move right now and he pushes it and the top portion is too hot, it'll shift the whole top brow as well, which is why you see he'll do a ton of different types of heat. Sometimes he will go into the glory hole a couple times in between heats. If it's a little bit larger of a move, maybe 3 heats. So he'll do a torch, a flash, a torch, a flash, a torch, a flash, and then do a move. But these surface moves, especially because he wants this bone structure to be angular, he'll do it a heat with a torch and then go right onto the surface of it. I think this skull's looking pretty terrific. What do you guys think? And remember, if you have any more recommendations for the name of this skull, the winner so far is John Doe. And our cameramen are getting nice and close so you can really see that pattern that Martin spent a long time carving in this morning. Because of the colors that he used, it's really not shifting that much at all, if any. And if you're just joining us, you have Martin Janecky. He's going to be making a skull for you today. He will be assisted by Aaron Hoffman and Darren Dennison. And we have been all having so much fun taking his class in the one and only Corning, New York. All right, so it looks like we are happy and satisfied with the, so happy and so satisfied with the top portion of the skull. So we're going to start closing that structure back in. So now we're going to do slightly longer heats. We're going to heat up the top of the skull a little bit more. And Martin's going to just gently close that pattern back in on itself. How's it going over there, Emilio? Absolutely, yeah. Our demos have been going from about 9 o'clock in the morning, some of them lasting until 5 o'clock at night. So 8-9 hour days, which is insane to me that these guys can work this long. So Emilio's over here saying that this will be the only demo where Martin finishes at 12. In the back, behind B shop. So go by the sink. All right, so we want to make sure that we have the right. Do you want me to go show him? Okay.
So we can use the small one, it's fine.
Okay. Just wondering. Always accommodating Martin Janecky. So we're not ready this instant for a puntee. We still have to close up the skull, blow it out a little bit. Epic assisting skills by Aaron Hoffman. Always holding it up, making sure that we're happy with the shape of it. And now Darren Dennison is going to be making a puntee. Can you clear off the marver so that Darren can make a punny? Now, I'm sure everyone is super intrigued by the skull process, but I'm sure other people are also equally intrigued by the punty making process. It takes an equally skilled assistant to help out with a piece like this. So Darren's over there making sure that everything's straight, everything's hot. And I would implore people get a video of how to make the punty too, because I'm sure other glass blowers will be really into that. Thank you, Brad. All right, so Darren Dennison on camera. If you don't know, Darren, when he's not helping out Martin, usually works for Lino. And I think I'm pretty strong, but this guy was lifting a horse head yesterday that I couldn't even get off of the bench. So watching this guy make a punny is an art form all into itself. Darren, what should people know about making a punty? Practice. Practice makes punty perfection. See some good communication. Want it a little bit wider, so there you go. Darren widens it. Is this going to be a cold core? It is going to be a cold core. Sculptural cold core punny. So Darren's cooling it off now because he's going to work very quickly after this to get just a little bit of glass about halfway up that moil that's happening right now. He's going to let that fall over. And then bring that right over to Martin. We've been doing a lot of punty practice here. We've had one whole morning for 4 hours of just making punties for each other. Darren's hanging out. Totally ready, and he's not concerned about that cold core because it is a cold core punny. He wants it pretty chilly. The reason they want it chilly is so that they can get some nice warm glass on the tip of it, bring it over while it's still nice and hot, stick it on, pull it back just a little bit, and it'll make like really nice, almost Hershey Kiss shape without ever putting a jack line in it. It's a very safe way of transferring a piece. All right, so we made sure that moil was nice and hot, the bottom of the skull was nice and hot, crimped in a little bit of structural weakness right at the base of that skull. And now you see Darren really pushing. Oh, he's pushing all the glass to the very back of that moil, and you see there's nice warm glass at the very tip. Now watch this, don't take your eyes off it for 1 second. For those of you who couldn't hear, sculptural punties make fart noises when they get put onto skulls. And that's a fact. You heard it here first, folks. So you can really see how that punty's pulling away beautifully. No jack line needed, because that will then create a weak point that if you're really pressing hard on something, that's going to make a weak spot and it's going to be very fragile. The point of a sculpture punny is that it is very sturdy. So while that sets up a little bit, we'll torch the back of this skull. Martin and Darren can make some eyes at each other. And there it is, a flying skull, everyone. The crowd went wild. Like, so do better next time. Like, that was like an okay applause, but like, I feel like you have more inside of you. Yeah. And this is an open forum, so if you ever see anything that you just think is super epic, just let it out. You can just start applauding at any moment, right? And this commercial interlude brought to you by Martin Janecky, who wants me to be quiet for a little bit. right, so just tuning back in really quick for everyone. We've transferred over the skull. We've gotten the bottom portion of it nice and hot. And Martin recommended to everyone out there to, rather than pull and trim the bottom portion of the skull all in one move, to maybe take 2 or 3 tries at it, because it's always better to cut off too little than realize you've cut off too much. And you can see that sculpture punny is being super awesome right now. You can really manipulate that glass, really press into it, and that punny is not moving. And that pattern looks cool from all different angles. Now that you can really see inside the skull too, you can see just how deep those grooves were. All right, everyone, there has been a request to shout out to Matt and Rose in New Jersey. So everyone say hi, Matt and Rose. Hi, Matt and Rose. You're welcome, Matt and Rose. Did everyone just check that move out? Were your minds blown? Blown. Cutting
That was like a shout out to her.
minds blown glass. Little shout out to minds blown glass. Was a good move, doing the water glove, and then making sure everything's nice and straight. No, I just burped, but I turned it. What was that? No, it's gonna be a slightly olivey tone, and the color that he used on the lines was not the exact color that we wanted. We wanted cherry red, but this is something a little bit different because we couldn't find it. But it's going to react and it's going to cause it to be like a really super deep, rusty brown color, almost black. But it contrasts really nicely with that kind of green undertone. It looks really nice. And it was all sifted powder on that base color. It was a gather, 2 gathers, 2 layers of sifted powder, another gather, more powder, and then they carved into it. So it's no overlays or anything, it's all powder. Absolutely. Any other questions I can help you with? He did carve it while it was hot. That's a lot of line work. It took about an hour and a half to set up the bubbles, set up the color, and then carve the lines, put all the color inside of them. But that's still, to my knowledge, faster than cold working a grawl, picking it up. So we're now on the punty. The base of the skull has been pushed out, well, cut and then pushed in. And now we're working on more of the teeth. Making sure that punty stays nice and warm. Question for me? No. No one wants to talk to us. I don't understand. How long has Martin been blowing glass? A lady never tells her age. Yeah. No, Martin's been blowing glass for 20... Hold on, let me do math. 25 years? Yeah. 25 years. He started blowing glass when he was 4, so doesn't look a day over 30, right? What? Oh, the skull that was born where? Philosophical moments about glass skulls? We haven't even had lunch yet. You need wine for that conversation. One must ponder these questions. Hamlet, there's someone who's really into Shakespeare that's watching. What up, theater nerd? I say that with the utmost respect because I also was in theater. So don't go get coffee or lunch. Stick around with us. Martin is in the end process of this skull, and I think this is one of the most interesting parts of watching Martin make a skull. When he makes, I'm not sure what the name of this bone is, but he makes the hollow of the temple anatomically correct by cutting away a portion of the skull, flattening it, and then stretching it to reattach it. And this is a slow, laborious process. He doesn't want to take it too fast, have it pull out differently. So the whole setup for that bubble was done with this process in mind. So he made sure he had enough glass for this move. And if you're not a hot shop worker and you're joining us watching this, you have to realize that all of these moves are very time sensitive. You can't stay out of the glory hole too long. You can't stay in there so long that that tiny piece that's now free floating is going to tag back in on itself and spin around. And as Martin's moving around, his hand is obviously getting some heat from the radiant heat that's coming off of that piece right now. Slow and steady. So if you notice, Martin had been working on the base of the skull, more of the teeth area, push that out. And he let that get nice and cold now while he's doing this. He's just systematically working across the whole facial structure to make sure that one area doesn't get too hot. And look at that, placed right there. That little handle that he used gets nipped away really nicely, and now that sharpened edge will get fully fused into the base of the skull and really made into one piece. So if you ever seen one of his skulls and not how he's made one, that's probably one of those moments where you're like, what? What? If you look at Martin's tweezers, you're also going to notice that they're rounded right now. And that is super helpful in sculpting. If you like to sculpt, I highly recommend a round pair of tweezers. Keeps everything from getting poked in and getting crazy textures all around it. And they're still useful to grab everything with. Almost out of water. Got to keep the man hydrated. Shout out also to our amazing tech team that we had. Harry Seaman right now holding down the fort in the tech office, making sure that this whole ship runs smoothly. So if you're watching, silent clap for Harry, everyone. We also have Kyle Lavery and Jeremy Unterman today. Yeah, do you need any water? Are you good? All right, one side down, one more to go. Who's ready to see the second part of the skull get done? Woo! We're getting better. We're learning, we're evolving. Am I gonna moderate tomorrow night? Comment tomorrow night. Just the stream of consciousness that comes out of my face all the time. Awesome, I am hilarious, so like it should. True story, bro. Yeah, it's past noon, but I mean, it's pretty... Oh, they're gonna stay and finish it. Are we still live streaming? Oh, cool. So you can hear everything I'm saying. Cool. I didn't know if it finished at noon or not. All right, so we usually finish at noon, but we know that you guys are super into this today, so we have our A team sticking around. Thank you, AV team. I know everyone watching right now is super excited that they're going to be able to see the completion of this awesome skull. Name in progress, John Doe. John Doe is still the winner. John Doe, right? Darren Dennison thinks John Doe is pretty funny. That pattern is awesome. How's it feel getting a day off today, Mr. Darren?
Wonderful.
Feel wonderful? Yeah, that was a giant horse yesterday. You can go to,
5 hours now.
yeah, it was only a 5-hour horse demo. You can go to Martin Janecky's Instagram page to see pictures and videos of the horse we made yesterday and all the other awesome demos he's been doing for us. Yeah, he is going to define some teeth in there. Checking out our class mascot, Scully.
Do many of these artists have parents in the business? They all appear to start really young. Martin Janecky.
No, his father's a glass blower and had a glass studio. Yeah. Yeah, but all of us certainly did not grow up in glass. I mean, my mom can't even draw a stick figure. She's such a bad artist. Hi, Mom. But I was just talking to the students, and they said that some of the things that they've really taken away from the class are that as you do certain moves, the heats are the things to watch for, not necessarily the sculpting moves themselves, but the temperature and the range of heats are the things to watch. And also doing a lot of different pull moves. You'll see that he makes a lot of handles to use purely for the act of pulling, and then he trims all those handles away. That way he doesn't get any tool marks or anything on those specific pieces. So yeah, we're all learning a lot here. coming live from the bleachers watching the Martin Janecky demo. Sitting with the one and only Bill Gudenrath over here. Bill, from your perspective, are you learning anything today? Is there anything that you're really enjoying about this demo experience that we're all sharing right now?
Well, every time Martin touches the glass, I feel like I learn something because he has that deep factory background and a technique that is rock solid. And when he touches the glass, he does it with utter authority. And he doesn't seem to ever, I don't know that he ever makes a mistake, doesn't look like it. And he just owns the process, and the technique and the aesthetics are so welded together with him. It's just a beautiful thing to watch him blow glass, work glass, solid, glowing, whatever. He's just on top of his game.
You heard it here first, folks. A sterling recommendation from Bill Gudenrath. Bill, thanks for talking with us today.
My
I'm going to get
pleasure,
back to
Kat.
the demo, but I really hope you enjoy yourself.
Thank you. I'm having a great time.
Having a great time.
Thanks, Kat.
Absolutely. This is too fun. All right, it's feeling really good up here in the bleachers. It's a little bit cooler than down on the shop floor. You can see the real diehards, they don't need lunch. They just need to learn. They're hungry for knowledge, not sandwiches from the butterfly. Oh, looks like we're going for the nose. Well, I guess it's a skull, so it's not really a nose, it's like nose holes. Martin was saying it took a couple heats to get there, but it's the prep that counts, and that's what the students have been saying they've been learning most from as well. What was your question before? Did you just ask Martin?
He was just saying it's all about setting up the right heat before you go in and sculpt, so where to heat, how much.
Mm-hmm. That probably just comes with practice, too.
Yeah.
All right, making sure everything's nice and centered. All right, now we're going to pick its nose. All right, now Martin's going to do some quick moves that are going to take some very quick timing on his part. So he's heating up two tools at once, making sure they both have a little wax on them, right? That way he can slide in and out of that bubble without scarring it or putting a little stress on it. He meant to put that there. All right, so we've gone for the nose cavern. just want to reiterate that we're doing everything nice and slow so that we don't distort any of the features that we've worked so hard to get. So now that we've gone for that cavern, we're going to do a little bit of surface heat on there and then do some quick surface sculpting. And that's going to give him those hard defined ridges of the bone. Gotta make sure there's no wax on those tweezers, right? All right. Good thing Martin has this light here, because when he does little moves like this, the whole class squeezes up really close and blocks all the light from him. Wax, glass blower's worst nightmare and best friend. I'd just like to comment on the structural integrity of Darren Dennison's punty right now, and that it is doing a fabulous job. And a lot of these moves, don't think that they feel rushed. Know that they feel exact. There's a very clear plan in mind for every heat and every single motion. So all the moves are going to look very quick, but that's just because they're so time sensitive. I think one of the things that we've all learned the most is to not overthink moves and to have a clear concept in mind so that when we heat something, we can immediately accomplish a very specific task. A lot of us in the first week were definitely taking a little bit longer with heats, a little bit longer with moves, and you can see as the week progresses, we've really learned a lot. Getting a nice heat. Just to make sure that the rest of it stays nice and warm. And just a couple more small moves on the nose. Trimming off a little bit of excess. Remember, we are still looking for a name for this skull. So please, if you have any comments, we'd love to hear them. Right, does it look like that one? Right, Martin's definitely looks better. And remember, we have another demo happening tomorrow at 6:30, which will also be live streaming, 6:30 in the evening, 7, 6, oh, it's at 6. Oh, 6 to 8. Okay. So if you're listening, we have a live stream from 6 to 8 tomorrow in the amphitheater. So you can have some dinner and then drink some wine or drink some beers with us over the computer and watch Martin make some awesome stuff. Yeah. And maybe listen to my hilarious commentary again, if you're lucky. For the YouTuber who was asking about teeth, there was a YouTuber asking, are we going to put teeth on it? I said yes. So now is your moment. Please come back to your computer screen and watch as we put the teeth in. All right, so he's making the structure right now of the jaw. Okay. All right, so Martin's saying what he's doing right now. He left himself a little bit of extra meat, so to speak, at the base of the jaw, the bottom portion of it, so that he could put in the mouth, put in the teeth, and then he could really see proportionally how much jaw should be left. That also gave him enough material for when he pushed in the base of the skull and pushed it in the back of that jaw, which became the base of the head. So now he has enough material to put in all the teeth and really push out that jaw and cut it to the shape and size that he wants. All right, Darren giving a little torch action because Martin's really going to be pushing out those teeth. He cut in the lines first and then goes back on the inside with a tool to give the teeth individual dimension, which I think is a very quick and clever way of giving a full set of dentures. And then he can go back in, redefine them a little bit if he wants to. Right, so a lot of the moves that we've been doing, heat, push things in, push things out, push them back in. There are usually about 3 moves to each body part. All right, so now that we have these very fine-tuned details, Martin's saying that we would never, once we're finished the teeth, we would never want to torch the teeth to move them. But what we can do is torch above the teeth and then push the whole skull upwards a little bit to really fine-tune these details. So it pushes down those nice little hollows of the jaw. And now as that's nice and hot, he can grab the bottom jaw and push up and shift that around to really give it some extra dimension and pop those features out a little bit more. So we're coming to the final stretch here. I hope you guys have been having fun hanging out with us. We've been loving all your comments and all of your questions. Feel free to ask us any more while we're here with you, putting in the final couple little touches. All the other students are starting to come back from lunch and filling up the bleachers again. What were you asking him?
He said to trim off the rest of that jaw.
Oh, yeah. Martin was also saying if you leave yourself a little extra, maybe it's a little bit thin, and rather than needing to cut some off, you need to thicken it up. You can also torch it, and rather than pushing downward like what he's doing right now, you would actually be able to push it up. So because he has enough thickness on the base of that jaw, he's able to push down right now. But that would be a way of fixing it if you made your bubble too thin. So now he heated that bottom jaw, pushed it down, and now he can really see clearly where the rest of that jaw can get cut off. So right now we're just fine-tuning proportions. out that putty, making sure that it's nice and warm before he starts doing these moves. So now you can see he let that, the portion of the jaw that he just pressed in, he let that cool down just a skosh. That way you could superheat the bottom of this. And you can see all the students are anxiously awaiting to shield Martin, but he goes, no, thank you. No, thank you. And I think we've all learned over the past week and a half now that when it comes to these tiny moves, we also don't really want shields. You just want to be able to see everything, make sure no one's getting in your way. It's just like carpentry. Measure twice, cut once. You can always cut more. You can't add more back on. All right, so now that we have the correct amount of glass for the base of that jaw, we can finish sculpting it. Get rid of those little cut marks. Add some little fine-tuned details. Make sure that there's fracks in the oven. Mr. Darren, did we put fracks in the oven? No fracks? Okay. This skull doesn't need any fracks. What the fracks, man?
I like that.
All right. Hope you didn't blink because that was a crazy slick move. You just gotta mean it. You gotta go for it.
Yeah. Punch the hole. Love it.
So if you couldn't hear what Martin just said, he used the grabber portion of a diamond shear, that pointy part. He basically punched a hole and then used the tweezers to really finish reaming through it. And it's a very quick and precise move. You just got to go for it. Can't think about it too much. So now you can really see the difference between the upper jaw and the lower jaw. Pretty sure this is one of the most anatomically correct glass skulls you're going to come across. Oh, we have a question. Let me run over there. What up, UC? Not much, man. Yeah, what's up?
Verdict on what we're naming the skull.
The verdict?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't hear all the options, but Darren, I know, feels very strongly about John Doe.
John Doe.
Yeah, John Doe. That was our verdict.
Well, Darren's pretty good for the hunting and burning. I'd say Darren.
Yeah.
You can't get an answer from Martin, which he's busy.
I feel like if Martin was the papa to this skull, Darren would be the mama to this skull. So I think Darren gets to name it, and
Okay.
Darren really enjoyed John Doe. Right? You're all doing so fabulous. So question, Martin, is there a favorite part of the skull to sculpt? Like, do you have a favorite feature to sculpt?
Think about it.
You can rest on it for a second. Don't worry, we've got time.
By one, but think about it. Figuring out the proportion. It's like this
So you just think the whole thing is fun, but the most fun parts are the second portion where you do all the folding. The most fun part is when it's the beer after you're done? All right, so if you couldn't hear that, because we've worked so hard on the detail on the outside of the face, he doesn't want to melt away the details, so we torch on the inside of the face. That way we don't get rid of any of the detail work, and he'll be able to fully stretch out the top part of that jaw and finish shaping it. So close, but so far away, he says. All right, so now we can use those diamond shears. None of those details have gone, but he can fully move the lower portion and stretch it back out even more. Did anyone get that face? No, when she pulled that polar bear out yesterday, she held it up and you could hear like angels singing like, "Ah." Yeah, it's right here. Oh, okay. So, we're going to be adding some more surface decoration to this piece. So we're going to be doing like a gentle overall heat on this piece at some point, and adding a just gentle dusting of baking soda to the whole surface, doing a light heat to kind of melt it in. It's going to give it a kind of scarred texture, so it'll look a little bit aged. Do some poor man's scavo. Is batch, right? Stovetop stuffing. Like you stuff in your turkey. Oh. All right, so if you wanted to know how to do stovetop scavo, Darren Dennison told you first, just take your turkey stuffing and put it on your glass. But we don't have turkey stuffing today, so we're going to use baking soda. Josiah McElhenney? McElhaney. I'm from Jersey. Sorry, everyone. He's from New York? So he talks funny, too. You do have to be careful when you use baking soda, though, because you are still using it as a powder, and you obviously don't want to breathe it in, and it also gets very, very dangerously slippery on the floor. So when you do it, you want it to be one of the last moves. You want to sweep it up, kind of get a wet mop nearby. All right, now we're going back on the outside of that face. Now that it's fully pressed out to our liking, we can go on the outside and do another one of those purely on the outside moves to make sure that the bone structure is nice and pronounced and not rounded in any way, shape, or form. Ooh, and everyone's bringing their lunch in. You can smell it. It smells so good. If anyone's listening, you can bring us cookies. All right. One last quick water break. All right, so we're gonna make one last punty here. Sneak behind you. Another cold core sculpture punny from Darren Dennison, because one's just never enough. Just never enough. Now this is going to help us out when we add the baking soda to the top of this skull. Rather than adding baking soda everywhere, breaking the skull off, having to cold work it, that's gonna put a funny bald spot on the very top of the skull that doesn't have any of this scarification technique. So we're gonna punny underneath where the jaw is, right, where you can't really see the cold working that much anyway after the punny comes off. We'll be able to pull off the little bit of clear. Always quick on his feet, but always able to add a little bit of flair, flipping the diamond shears before cutting them off. We want it a little bit smaller. It's a smaller surface area. But still that cold core process. So the base, well, the sides are cold, and that very tip, nice and warm. Darren's just torching that little diamond shear spot right. Making sure it's the right temperature. Just like Goldilocks, can't be too hot or too cold. It's got to be just right. Bob's over here shaking his head. Yes, just right, Kat. All right. So giving it a little pull. And notice the angle of his jacks. He's not going straight up and down trying to put a jack line in it. He's just trying to give a little valley between the pull of the punty and the moil. making sure that all those very now exposed features don't get too chilly in this process while the punty sets up, especially because it's not a super centered punty. Little tap, off it comes. Second flying skull of the day. Yes, the crowd goes wild! Woo! Martin says, shh. So now everyone's gonna be very quiet. I'm gonna talk to you in this nice little whispering voice. Now Martin can center up the skull. And he's gonna torch the rest of that punty off. And try to keep that pattern as intact as possible, right? We spent a lot of time on this pattern, so we don't want to distort it at all. And this last portion is going to go really fast. Darren, do you need a brush or anything for the extra baking soda to brush any extra off? No? It'll just go off? Okay.
Fires it on.
All right, so hear that? So because it's just going to be a nice, tiny surface decoration, unlike using powder, there's no dusting it off. Decent portion of it's not even going to stick on there anyway, and the rest of it will get gently tack fused, and what comes out of the annealer, you'll even be able to kind of brush some of the excess off still. It doesn't hold very well. But what does hold gives a really nice texture. Now, we're being very delicate right now with this little top notch because we can no longer blow up this piece, right? It's a sculpture punny. So the shape that we're stuck with after this is kind of only how much we can press in. So once that little knot comes away, it's going to be another gentle heat just to kind of round everything out again. But there is a gap at the very base of the skull still. So if we had to do some quick inside sculpting moves, there's still an opening for us to do that.
You can't get side with an inside sculpting tool, right? If you had to, yeah.
All right, and class is just asking questions about what I was just telling you. And he was saying that to pull that knot off, right, he made a flower and then made a very small connection to that so that he's able to pull or push as much as he wants. And now taking that last little excess off. Did everyone hear that? We're letting it cool off for a second. We don't want to over-torch it. We're trying to smooth it all out. That one spot is going to stay extra hot, and that's going to press in more than the rest of it. So we're letting the rest, that very center portion, cool off a little bit so that we can heat the surrounding area, and those heats are going to just kind of start to equalize there. All right, get ready everyone, we're gonna put some more lines on the top of this thing. Just kidding, that was a joke because we spent an hour and a half putting lines on earlier. Yeah, we're gonna go over there. Coordinating with the AV team to make sure that you get the best possible view of adding this baking soda. Pulling out another cork paddle, really gonna finish defining that brow. Right, and this is a very careful move right now. And like when it's opened at the very top, there's kind of no going back from this. Making sure that it's nice and smooth right there. Giving it a little love. Ready, brother? Darren says, all teams assemble. We're good to go. Turn up the glory hole. All right. So we really want this to fuse on there as much as possible. So we're turning up the hole nice and high. That way it does a really quick flash surface heat, and we don't have to heat it long enough that we lose any of the texture from the features that he's carved in there. So I'll be quiet for a sec. Maybe you can hear how hot this glory hole is. All right, so we're gonna get this surface hot, just the very, very outside skin. But not long enough to round out or deform any of the features. And then he hop, jumps, and skips over to the powder booth so that we don't have to breathe in any of that powder. And they're just gonna rotate and use a tiny little sifter, little bullseye sifter, because that's the only thing that the baking soda won't just sift right through. Say that 10 times fast. And you might do that once, might do it twice. Everybody back up, let Picasso paint. All right, there it is. All right, now watch carefully. You saw what it went in looking like. It'll look a little tiny bit different coming out. I like that in there. It's not slippery now. I said I like doing it in there. It's not slippery. Now look at it. It gives it a really lovely matte finish. All right, now because we did get it hot, we just want to make sure that we didn't mess around with that shape too much. Remember, we had just been torching the very top of the skull. All right, now that's a great image right there. One final look at this skull. All right, and Mr. Darren Dennison is going to be putting on his Sunday finest so that we can put this in the annealer. And Martin's going around showing off that skull. I have a feeling this is going to get tons of footage on Instagram today. just torching that punty connection. We don't want to see any movement in the skull. We just want to see some movement in that punty itself. I'm gonna turn off this fan. Right, we don't want to run past any cold air. Do you want the face shield, Darren? I've got a beard. I don't need a face mask. 5 o'clock shadow. There you go. Teamwork. All right. Darren's ready to catch. Erin's ready to open up the door. Keeping gloves gently under the skull, but not grabbing it until final tap. Hold your breath. Hold your breath. All right, let's clap before it goes in the oven, because that's not bad luck at all. Woo! Awesome job, everyone involved. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, AV team. Thank you, class. Thank you all who witnessed that. Hope you guys have a great afternoon, and we will see you tomorrow at 6 for our second live stream. Goodbye, everybody.